Hey Trail Travelers, it is Kerry with Trail Traveler, and today we're going to talk about getting the Baofeng GMRS 50X1, the radio that I did the unboxing for recently, getting it up and running and what it's going to take. So stay right there. We'll be right back. Now, if you've ever used one of the Baofeng UV5Rs, is a good example because they're really cheap, and you want to set it up on GMRS frequencies. Now, you can get a frequency list and just type in the frequency, and there you go. But in order to be compatible with other radios, like the FRS handheld radios or someone who has a standard GMRS radio, you have to know which exact frequency is for which channel. Now, you can use a piece of software called Chirp and the programming cable, and then program the GMRS frequencies into the UV5R and get up and running. You have to buy the cable separately, which is almost as much as the radio itself. And there you go, you can get it set up, and then not only have the flexibility of dialing in any frequency, you can just go in channel mode and just go to whatever GMRS channel everyone else is on. With the 50X1, this is a GMRS radio. So really, if you hook it up to power and an antenna, it's ready to go. It was really, really simple. There was literally nothing I had to do to make it work. So why even do this video? Well, because we're going to talk about some other things and some of the things that you can do to tweak it and set it up for your area, some setting up repeaters, things like that, that it may not be completely suitable for right out of the box. So those are the things we're going to talk about. You can also customize the screen. You can put your own name on it or whatever you want and change the colors. There's a few different things that you can do to enhance it. And then there's also a ton, and I mean a ton, of additional features in this thing. If I look at the manual here, and as I said in the unboxing, if you didn't watch that, BTECH is a US distributor for Baofeng. And what they do is they bring the radios in from Baofeng and they set them up properly for being legal in the US. They set the GMRS frequencies. You can't change those. It is completely adherent to the GMRS rules. The other thing they do is they rewrite the manual. They don't just translate it, they rewrite it. So this feels very, very good. It's very comfortable to read. It's not broken English. It's not what you'd expect from Google Translate or things like that. So very, very good. They also have a YouTube channel, and that's pretty handy as well. The first thing in here is an overview of the front screen, what all the features do, which is very handy. Then it talks about the ports on the back. You have the antenna connector, power input, the line out, which is kind of cool. And so if you wanted to hook it up to a speaker or something like that, you can do that. It's got the cooling fan, and it says right here, the GMRS 50X1 uses a 3.5 millimeter TS mono speaker out in the rear. It is compatible with standard 3.5 millimeter TS, which is just tip and ring, or tip and sleeve, sorry, tip and sleeve plug. So plug something in and you can have an external antenna or an external microphone. Very cool. And then it goes into what everything is that you'll see on the screen. And there's a lot of stuff on here. In one review of the 50X1, one person actually said the screen is too cluttered because there's a lot of information on here. If you take a look right here, yeah, there's a ton of information on this screen. And in some ways that's good, some ways that's bad. I think there's plenty of information, but there's a lot of features, so it's handy to have all this stuff. The main thing I want to see is what channel am I on, and that stands out very clear. So I'm very happy with that. Then you can also see what mode it's in, the signal strength, your output volume, your supply voltage. There's quite a bit. If you're in channel mode or what channel you're on. Yeah, there's a lot of information here. Your main frequency indicator, secondary frequency indicator, your current receiving, your FM frequency indicator, current mode. It is packed with information. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of information on here. But for most people, you're just going to need to know what channel are you on. Very, very simple. It talks about antenna, what type of antenna to use, magnetic mount antennas, NMO or PL259 base antennas. So under the antenna requirements, it says antenna SWR rating should be 1.5 to 1 or less. Now, SWR is the standing wave ratio. I'm going to put it as simply as possible. It's making sure that your antenna and cable combination is tuned properly. Now, you cannot just go and grab a CB radio SWR meter and plug it in because everything is different. You're not going to get the right results. You need a proper GMRS SWR meter. And if you don't have one, you can go buy one. You can find someone who has one. Here in Colorado, we have the Front Range GMRS users group. Somebody has an SWR meter. So if I really wanted to get it tuned, I could find someone to plug in and make sure that everything was dialed in right. And by dialing in, you're typically adjusting the height of the antenna, either up or down just a little bit. Hopefully never up, because you can't add to an antenna, but usually they're a little long and you just bring them down, cut it if you need to or whatever. Some of them are tunable. Some CB radios are like that. And you can adjust the height of the antenna to get your SWR right where you want it to be. Now this is very important because if your SWR is off, not turned off, but if it's not within kind of spec, you're just not going to get range or reception. So you really want that antenna tuned well. So don't expect that you can just go and buy any old antenna, pop it on there, and everything is going to work beautifully. You really need to have that tuned. So find somebody in your area, and this goes true for CB radio as well. If you don't have a properly tuned antenna on your CB, you're not going to get range, you're not going to get reception, it's not going to work well. It definitely will not be optimum by any stretch of the imagination. So same thing whether it's CB or GMRS, it's just as important with both of them to get that SWR tuned in. Now you can add the NOAA weather channels. I don't see any need for me to do that. I check the weather before I go. I'm not too interested in that, but there's definitely people that are. If I was doing a lot of overlanding and I was going to be out for days at a time, that might be important. But for me, I usually am just doing day trips, or I'm somewhere else in a town. I go to the trail and then come back. I'm not spending days out on the trail where keeping up to date on my weather is going to be important. So not a big feature for me, but I definitely understand why that's a good one. Now we get to page 20 in here, and we have our GMRS frequency chart and channel guide. Okay, now GMRS channels are going to go up to 22, and it lists the frequency next to all of them, which is super handy because, again, if you have someone else who has a tunable radio but they don't have the GMRS channel set, you can say, hey, let's go on channel 14, it's 467.7125. They can get that, type that into the radio, boom, you're communicating. Really cool. It has 8 channels that are preset for use with repeaters, and those are on fixed frequencies. So I was trying to get set up on one of my local repeaters here, which is on 462.600, and because I'm used to a different radio, I thought I could just dial in the frequency and get it all set up. And it just wouldn't work for some reason. I didn't understand why until I figured out, again, with a legal GMRS radio, you can't go around just putting in any frequency that you want. So I had to look in here and go, oh, look at this. 462-600 is on channel 25. And then I was able to put in the specific features for my repeater. So I was able to get my repeater working. So we actually have 3 here. We have 462-675, which is on channel 28, and 462-700, which is on repeater 21, which is channel 29. So I had to refer to this to figure out how to set up for the repeaters in my area. So if you're setting up for a repeater, you're gonna need to refer to this chart in here to make sure that you're setting it up on the right channel. Now, when you're in Chirp, it will tell you. And we'll get to Chirp in just a moment, and you can understand kind of a shortcut way of doing things. Let's see, what else do we have in here? Programming the scanning channels. So it features 256 memory channels that can hold receive frequencies, GMRS channels, and channels 000 and 31 through 225. And really, I just wanted to monitor the GMRS frequencies and my repeater frequencies. So it's basically just running through all of them. And one thing I will note about the scanning feature, it's really fast. The UV5R handheld, it was actually pretty slow. And it was pretty easy to miss somebody who was trying to communicate, who was trying to get a message out and contact somebody. It was actually pretty easy to miss somebody with the UV5R because the scanning was so slow. The scanning on here is pretty quick, and it will run through all of the channels and the repeaters pretty much fast enough that if someone is doing a basic call, you know, like mine would be WREL 483, monitoring 600, you know, mobile, looking for assistance. By the time I could get that sentence out, it's pretty much run through all the channels and locked onto me. So the scanning on this thing is super fast. You can add specific channels to scan. You can leave others out. So if I was only wanted to scan a few channels, I could narrow it down. There's 3 different power levels, high, mid, and low. And those are going to be really not really adjustable on some channels, again, to be compliant with the GMRS rules. So only channels 15 to 30 you can change to medium or high. Now, if you're on a trail, you don't, and you know, everybody's within line of sight, you don't really need to be on mid or high. You know, I mean, you really don't. You're right there. And so running on a lower power setting is fine. I don't really see a disadvantage of just knocking them all on high and letting it go that way. Don't really see that there's any negative to it. I mean, the draw from your battery is not going to be significantly different or anything. If you are not wanting to just broadcast huge to where anybody could possibly hear you, you want to limit it to a shorter range because you're on a trail or you're just trying to have a closer communication, then going down to low power could be very appropriate. Now it does have features in here like remote kill, remote revive, DTMF settings. None of my repeaters support that, so not going to set that up. I don't need the remote kill or the remote revive, so we're not going to get into there. Here's different scanning modes, time operation, carrier operation, search operation. I think search operation is probably the best for certain things where it will stop when it detects a signal. with time operation and carrier operation, it will stop when it gets a signal and then it'll start going again. So there's been times where I haven't been able to get to the microphone fast enough to reply to somebody and it's already started going ahead and scanning again. So I kind of prefer search, and it's so easy with the numeric keypad on the microphone to just hit scan again and let it keep going. So that's the way I prefer that. You can also skip channels for scanning, and you can do that right from the handset, which is really cool. Press menu, enter 16 on your keypad. To scanning add mode, press menu to select. Use the plus or up or down keys to select if the channel will be added or removed from the scanning list. Super, super easy. Being able to do everything from or pretty much most everything from the microphone. At first, I wasn't keen on that. I just didn't know how useful that would be. But my radio is mounted on the passenger side on the kind of inside footwell. And while I can see the screen okay, if I'm on a trail or something and I want to change a feature, I have to bend way over and get down to the buttons on there to make changes, where I can be looking at it and make the changes right on my handset, which is way, way more comfortable. So much happier with that. Actually kind of becoming a big fan of the numeric keypad on there. Dual, tri, and quad watch. This is one that I'm probably going to set up at some point. I don't need to really set it up now, but at some point it could be valuable. In certain situations, I'm just going to read from the manual. The ability to monitor 2, 3, or even 4 channels at once can be a valuable asset. The BTECH GMRS 50X1 features dual, tri, and quad watch functionality with the ability to scan between 2 to 4 frequencies at a fixed interval and to lock the transmit frequency to one of the 4 channels it monitors. And again, really easy. Press the menu key, press 0 to get to the TMR watch settings, press menu to select which channels are monitored, use plus and or up and down keys to enable or disable, press the menu key to confirm, and exit to exit. So I think I talked about this in the last video, where I could have all the students that are with me be on one channel, and I could have trail leaders and assistant guides on another channel, and it would monitor between those so that my assistants and stuff aren't broadcasting on the channel that everybody is listening to. So I definitely see a use for this particular feature. Also, when I'm just driving around, I'm usually on GMRS channel 7. That's what me and a couple friends use, but I also have the repeater channels. So I can set it up to monitor both channel 7 and my repeater channels. So that, I think, is super, super cool and very easy to set up. CT, CSS, DCS. I don't really need to do anything with that. The tone burst, to send out a tone burst, you simultaneously will press the PTT while holding down the call button. I don't need to do that, so I'm not going to get too far into it. The text display colors, I think it's actually pretty darn funny that these are things that I can continue to change from the handset. I can do that all with Chirp, but I can do it all right in here, which is just crazy that you can do so much of the programming right from the handset. So there's a whole section on how to change the display colors in here. Sync display channels, to sync channels on the display, simultaneously display channel name and frequency. You can do that. Man, there's just, I told you, this thing is just loaded and loaded with features. So I'm going to skip through a bunch of the stuff in here. And that kind of wraps up going through the manual. So if we want to use Chirp, I'm going to go ahead and launch it here. All right, this is Chirp, super user friendly, right? One of the very first things that you want to do if you're going to start using Chirp to set up your radio is you're going to go to the radio menu and say download from radio. Now you have to have the programming cable, you have to have it plugged into your computer, you have to have it plugged in to the port on the radio, and you select download from radio. It'll pop up, it'll ask you which vendor you have and which model of radio, and you hit OK, and it will download everything from the radio. Now what that will look like will be, let me open it up here. So here's my configuration. I've got all my GMRS channels. I have my repeater channels set to 600, 675, and 700. And mine requires certain DTCS codes and receive codes. So those are programmed in here. But I've already made those changes. But everything else was right from the radio. Now, like I said, unless you're setting up repeaters, there's really no need to touch this screen at all. I mean, there's just none. There's no reason. There's nothing you can do to improve anything. You can't go and set the low power channels on high, anything like that. So you don't really need to do that. So what we're going to do is go to the settings, and this is where you can get to a ton of the other features. And again, there's a lot of stuff in here that you'd really never need to look at unless you really know what you're doing. But here's on this basic settings, you have squelch level, auto key lock, timeout timer, backlight timer, display modes, colors of the different data things on the screen, what you want the transmitting status to be, mic volume or power, your ANI strength, your squelch tail eliminate, repeater STE, DTMF gain, mic gain. If people are saying that you're too quiet, you can come in here and up your mic gain. If they say you're overmodulating, turn down your mic gain. Pretty simple stuff here. And under advanced settings, you can have a static message, and this is going to appear on the bottom of the radio. So mine just says Trail Traveler because my channel is called Trail Traveler, so it's a good reason for it. And let's see, some of these work settings. Again, most of this stuff you are never going to touch. The only ones that you really are going to probably want to play with are the colors in the basic settings and in that advanced setting, setting that static message. Once you have it all done, and you don't need to be connected to your radio at this point. Once you download it, I'm in my living room here versus the Jeep being in the garage with the radio. Once I downloaded that, now I can do all my editing, make all my changes, and then when I go back, I hook everything back up, I go to the radio menu, and I say upload to radio. Again, I'm just going to verify that I'm on the right port, that I have the vendor and the model correct, hit OK, and it will start dumping to the radio. Going from my MacBook here, it takes maybe a minute or so to send everything to the radio, then the radio reboots, and there's all my changes. So pretty darn simple to get set up, because, well, getting set up and working, it's like I said, it's power and antenna. There's really nothing to it. Making sure your antenna is tuned properly, you are good to go. You only need to get in here and do this if you want to change some of these settings. Now, I believe you can even change that name on there through the handset, if I remember reading that in here. But Chirp is a little easier. It's more user-friendly. You can just type stuff in. So it's definitely faster to do things on here. Also, if you're in a group like mine here, the Front Range GMRS group, there's people who will have a working configuration that they can send you, and boom, all your channels are there, your repeaters are all set up, you're all good to go. So you can get set up very, very quickly if someone has a plug for your radio. That just makes it super simple to get uploaded. So that's really all there is to it, to setting up the BTECH GMRS 50X1. Like I said, once again, you literally don't need to do anything but plug it into power, plug in an antenna. So long as the antenna is within spec, you are good to go. There's nothing else you have to do to get up and running. All these other things I've talked about are either just for tuning the display, setting some features, your mic gain, some fine tuning stuff that you might want to do, or if you really need some of these super advanced features, then you're going to use Chirp to come in here and set those up, or dig through the manual and figure out how to do them. So that's it for me with the BTECH GMRS 50X1. I've been using it for about a week now. Super happy with it. It's been just fine. I've talked to a few different people, both on just person to person as well as on the repeater. No one's had anything bad to say about it. They said the quality was fine. I was coming across nice and strong. I wasn't overmodulating. It was set up really well. People who bought these a while ago said that the default mic gain was too low and they had to go in and turn that up. Mine was defaulted to 10. It seems to work just great. So only if someone is complaining that you're too low or too high that you want to adjust that mic gain. Otherwise, you're probably set. So that's it for a $200 radio. Pretty much plug and play. Not much to do unless you really want to do some tweaking. And that's it for me. Thanks for watching, everybody. This has been Kerry with Trail Traveler. Please like, share, and subscribe. I really appreciate it. It helps keep me motivated to turn out more videos, and it helps other people to find the channel. So thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.